So I don't remember what day it is anymore. I mean, it's a simple thing, right? But I couldn't tell you how many days I've been gone. I just looked at my watch. My watch says it's Wednesday. So what is that? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's day 5. And not quite sure what I'm going to do today. I kind of feel like hiking, which is kind of silly because my legs are really still kind of sore and tired. But I don't know, driving from fishing spot to fishing spot, I kind of feel like a slug. So I'm over at Saddlebag Lake. Figure I'd check out the conditions. Last year I came out here when there was snow, and I found all the lakes frozen. And actually it doesn't look as bad as last year, although last year you could drive up into the parking lot, and right now you can't. Well, I don't see as much ice on the lake. And that one golden trout lake that I wanted to fish last year was open. I didn't have my snowshoes, so I couldn't safely get to it. I don't know, there's a lot of snow in the parking lot, and I just can't imagine that'll bode well for the backcountry, but I get to the far side of the parking lot, maybe I can see what the far side of the lake looks like. Okay. Well, here's the parking lot, and it is completely covered with snow. Sun cups, my favorite. And the lake has a good bit of ice on it, but the eastern trail looks fairly clear. But you know what? That left side looks much like it did last year. It's very deceptive. You look at it and you're like, oh, there's not too much snow. And then you get around the corner and wham. For anybody thinking that they're going to be camping at the Saddlebag Campground on 4th of July, not happening. It looks very tempting, but given what happened last year and the fact that tomorrow I've got at least a 3.5 hour hike into Cottonwood Lakes, and that's presuming I'm not gonna, well, I mean, it's gonna be longer than that, right? Because I just talked to the ranger and she says there's still snow up there. She thinks the lakes might still be frozen, although reports from last week were that they were kind of slushy. So given that it's normally a 3-hour hike and there's still snow, I'm probably going to be hiking for 6 hours tomorrow. So maybe going on a hike today isn't the best idea. But anyway, there's plenty of places to fish, so just need to find a place. So I've stopped on the upper section of Levining Creek. Some people call it Saddlebag Creek, and I think I'm going to fish here. It's less of a put and take fishery than the stream downstream. It does get plants, but it's also got a wild population of brook trout, and it's really cool. In the fall, you can come here, and the brook trout are in their spawning colors, and you can look down on the stream, and it's just like fiery red all throughout the stream. So a lot of good memories here. It's a fun place to fish. It's a good place for beginners. And I figure, you know, I want to do more stream fishing this year. And if I'm going to fish it this week, this would be the time to fish it because, you know, starting tomorrow, this place is going to be a madhouse. So, and maybe even this afternoon. So if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it now. So I've come downstream a bit to start here. It's, you know, pretty much impossible to work my way downstream without spooking fish. So I'm gonna gear up here and hang out a bit. Hopefully they'll come back on station if they're here, and hopefully I'll get into some.
I'm not really sure where the fish are going to be yet. You know, in the summer there would be fish. There would be fish everywhere in here. I mean, all these little pockets. You'd have to hit, you know, 3 or 4 casts into each little pocket to make sure that you've covered it effectively before moving on. You know, with the temperature as it is now, I mean, I'm wearing a jacket now. And you know, there's still snow runoff, so it's gonna be cold. So I would expect the fish to be in the slower, sunnier water. But you know, that said, this is a beautiful run, and I'm still, you know, I'm gonna hit behind this rock. I'm gonna hit that that pocket water there, just, you know, just for GP. Hit all the way down here. Hit everywhere in this tail out and this riffle. And I'm going to start with that pool right there. As usual, I'm fishing 2 flies. Starting off with the beathead, the soft hackle hare's ear that I tie, and then on the dropper, I've just got a standard hare's ear. This is a size 18 or 20. I think it's a 20. Standard gold ribs hare's ear, and I just tie, you know, I tie the dropper right on the end, right on the bend of the larger hook.
I'll be high stick nymphing a la Joe Humphreys without an indicator. Tuck casts the whole bit.
I've got my first fish, and as you can see, it's a whopper. Little wild brown in some of the pocket water, so hopefully there's a bigger one in there. And you know, one thing I didn't say is I'm going to move through this water fairly quickly. I'm going to move through the pockets, you know, much quicker than I did yesterday.
I'm going to worry less about spotting fish than yesterday. I am going to try to spot fish, but I know this stream, and I know where the types of water the fish should be in, and so I'm going to, you know, just going to move through it quickly and then move on to another stream, I think.
So as I said, I'm working up through this water pretty quickly. You know, in the summer you'd expect fish to be all over this, you know, this fast pocket water, but in the winter not so much. So you know, I'm hitting water pretty fast. You know, doing 6 or 8 casts to the water in front of me, taking a step or 2, and then moving on. And you know, this is actually my favorite type of fishing because you know, fishing in pocket water is fast, it's exciting. You know, you just make cast after cast. So a lot of times the fish will hang out underneath this brush along the bank, but I'm not seeing any, and I'm not spooking any as I make my way up the bank.
So I've worked my way up that entire run, and I only caught that one itty bitty fish. I did miss another strike, and I did spook another fish, so I've only seen 3 fish. I'm hanging out because the water is really cold and I want to warm up my feet. Plus I've come to a really good run, you know, at least in the summer it's really good. It's starting to flatten out here, it's not as steep, so the water's a little slower. There's plenty of places for fish to hide here. You know, again, I sort of expect up in the meadow there'll be some deep, slow pools, and the fish will probably be hanging out in there. But you know, we'll see if they're here. But anyway, I need to warm up my feet.
Okay, so we'll see if I do any good here. I'm going to sneak over to just behind that rock. So I'm going to crouch to the edge of the sandbar, and I'm going to start throwing casts right in around here. Now, as I approached, I already made casts back here and in here. So I want to go up on the other side of this rock And the fish like to hang out right in front of that brush. You can sort of see it creates a slight eddy over there. So, I don't know, we'll see if there are any fish holding in there.
Now, what was funny about that fish that I just caught that I didn't get on film was when I set the hook, I basically launched it into orbit. So the wind is starting to pick up and I'm getting cold. I'm going to do a quick reconnaissance upstream to see if I can find any slower, deeper pockets, and then I'm going to head out. Okay, well that looks like just the water I've been looking for. It's a little bit slower coming around that bend. It's really deep. So I'm going to try to fish it without getting in the water. Stay as far back from the bank as I can. So sitting here, I see one fish in that pool. And I may have spooked it because it was sitting on that eddy on the left, and because of the current pattern and the water swirling upstream, it was facing me as I came over here. So I'm crouched on the bank, but he would have been looking right at me, and I don't see him anymore. But I'm going to sit here and just watch for a while, see if maybe there's another fish in there, one that's not looking downstream. I'm also going to wait till the wind is in my favor. The wind's been blowing fairly hard, which, you know, if I'm fishing across stream, up and across stream, if I can get my fly where I want it, then the wind doesn't bother me so much. Sure, it puts a bow in my line, but I've learned how to adapt to that and still get that bottom roll that Joe Humphreys talks about. I just let the wind put a bow in my line, but I can watch my line and I can see that the fly is ticking along the bottom. But in this case, it's blowing so hard that I'm not going to be able to get the fly where I want it, and I want my first cast to be a good one. So I'm going to sit here until the wind dies down. So I got him, a nice snaky brown. I'm not seeing any more fish in there. Now it's very possible there are fish under the bank on the left, but I don't see any more in the main pool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to right about here, and I'm going to cast up into that riffle, let it swing back around. Hopefully it'll get underneath the bank, or at least underneath this brush, and pique the curiosity of whatever's there. Well, I got hung up, which is not unexpected given the direction that the wind was coming in, and the current, and where the current was going to take my fly. It was inevitable that I was probably going to get hung up. You hope that you get down in there and a fish takes it before before you get hung up. That's the hope. But that didn't happen in this case. But that last fish was a good fish to end things on. I'm pretty cold, so I'm going to hop in the car and try to figure out what my next destination is going to be. Eventually, I should probably get down to Hot Creek. So I've decided to come out to Hot Creek. It's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is typically when you want to be leaving the creek. In my experience, mid-afternoon fishing here isn't great, but I'm going to do it anyway because it'll be fun. In true afternoon Hot Creek fashion, the wind is up and it is howling. So the creek's changed a lot over over the last several years, last 20 years. You know, you wouldn't think it, but you know, holes get filled in, other holes emerge. Right down here used to be my favorite section, right behind that rock. It was a big fish hangout, but it's not the case anymore. I have a love-hate relationship with the stream. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite stream, but it can get crowded. And not only that, but in recent years, the fashionable way to fish the creek has been walking downstream, casting across to the downstream presentation. You know, which is a fine way to fish, but on this particular stream, you know, what you're doing is you're mostly pushing the fish off of the near bank. And, you know, if people would just take the time to look for fish before they cast, you know, they wouldn't need to do that. Now the stream's a bit high and off color. I like to fish, I'm going to fish the soft tackle beathead hare's ear, but I also like to fish caddis emerger patterns here, of which right now I don't think I have any. So I'm not sure what I'm going to use as the dropper, but this is a good place to fish, and then I like to work my way upstream to the pocket water. The pocket water is usually pretty good. It's a nice little rainbow, not as good as the first one, but it's 6 o'clock and I am arguably leaving at the best time to fish Hot Creek. I typically like to get here around 6 and fish until dark. That said, it's been a decent night, decent afternoon, I guess. In terms of numbers, caught fish in the double digits or close to it, and didn't get anything of any real size. Now, yeah, I didn't get anything of any real size. I didn't actually see anything of any real size. There were a bunch of people on the stream, so I know one guy caught one that was like 15 or 16. I think the best I did was maybe 14 inches. You know, some missed fish. The fish were pretty much where you would expect them to be. I actually had to go deeper. In terms of, I shouldn't say deeper, I had to put on more weight than I normally do, and then the water's high, or at least high for Hot Creek, which, you know, high for Hot Creek is like 2 feet. I mean, it's not terribly high, but it was high and fast for Hot Creek, and so I had to fish double beads, kind of like I was doing yesterday. And you know, sometimes, you know, when I used to fish with shot, you know, sometimes I'd have to do that. I have to put a shot, you know, like 6 inches above my beadhead to make sure that it got down. And more importantly than getting down is to make sure that it was slow. Right? I mean, Hot Creek is one place where a dead drift is absolutely critical. And the only way to do that when you're nymphing is to make sure your nymph is rolling the bottom. And if your leader is moving, and I fish mostly without, you know, I fish mostly indicatorless. If your leader is moving at the same speed as the current, your fly is still moving too fast, because down by the rocks, you know, below, you know, on the stream bed, the current's actually, where the fish are holding, the current is actually slower than what you're seeing on top. So if you're not slowing it down, you know, slower than you think the current is going, at least at Hot Creek, then you're probably not catching fish.